Hello, I'm Richard Clarke, hosting this satsang. I've followed Ramana Maharshi since 1990. I took satsang for many years with Nome of SAT in Santa Cruz. Upon retirement, my wife Carol and I moved to Tiruvannamalai, home to Ramana Ashram. We lived there for 8 years and now live in Mexico. I have offered satsang for more than 10 years. I'm just a seeker like you and sharing what I love. I've been blessed with years of deep teaching and deep practice, and I want to share what I love. That's why I offer this satsang. Now, this is a Ramana Maharshi self-knowledge satsang. This satsang series is based on Ramana Maharshi's book, Who Am I?, where he first laid out his teaching. We use the all-text version, which is the only version actually edited by Ramana. The focus is on self-knowledge, since self-knowledge is what brings self-realization, the deep experiential knowledge of your own existence. So know yourself and be always free and at peace. This week we'll look into paragraph 9, Ramana's words. That which arises in the physical body as I is the mind. If one inquires whence the I thought in the body arises in the first instance, it will be found that is from the hydayam, or the heart. That is the source and stay of the mind. Or again, if one merely continuously repeats to himself inwardly, I, with the entire mind fixed thereon, that also leads one to the same source. Now, Ramana equates the mind and the ego I. He says they're the same thing. He says that what rises in the body as I is the mind. This tells us that the I is only a thought, a concept, a construct of the mind. We are told to inquire, to look in the heart for the rising of the I thought. It's important to note that Ramana is not saying to look into the physical heart, nor is he saying to look into the physical location in the body usually associated with the heart center in the chest, where you might point to say, this is me. In Hinduism, the Sanskrit word for heart refers to the center of being, from which all existence flows. The center for being is not anything physical, and it is you, who you are, where your sense of being comes from. The heart to which Ramana refers, he also calls reality, by which he means the absolute, or self. This reality is what actually exists. and it is all that exists. If you identify reality with a body location like the heart, then you maintain your identity as the body. But the body rises and falls from awareness, like in waking and then deep sleep. So the body cannot be the changeless. Ramana says that even japa, repetition of I, will lead one to the same source if done with real depth. The basic approach is to keep the focus on the first, that is, the first person, I, or the I thought, and not to let the mind wander to the second or third person, you, she, them, it, the world, and so forth. Now some notes for practice. Is there any specific part of the body that is you? You should be sure of this. Look and examine within yourself. See if you can find you anywhere in your body. Where in your dream does your body come from? The dream is all thought. Do you have a body in the dream? The body feels, sees, touches. Where does that come from? Within you, where does your sense of existence come from? Where do you look to answer the question, do I exist? Where does this sense of reality come from? Where does the sense of reality in a dream come from? Now on to our videos for the week. First is Swami Sarvapryananda. This dynamic young Swami is head of the New York Vedanta Society, and he will be talking about differentiating ego and mind from pure awareness.
But let me ask you, do you experience the I? This is the crucial question. Do you experience your ego if you sit quietly and do you feel I? Do you feel that? All of us, when we look into the mind, do we feel the ego? Yeah, we can say I. With confidence, we can say, yes, I. I am sitting. Do I feel that? Yep. I am listening. Yes. So the ego is something that is experienced. If it is experienced, it is the seen. And you are the seer of the ego. Do you see where I'm going with this? The ego is the seen, and you are the seer of the ego. Otherwise, it wouldn't be experienced. If it is experienced, it's an object just like this. Even the ego, even the I is an object. I don't mean this I mean the vertical I. Even that is an object. You are not the ego. You are not the ego. The ego shines in your light. We get identified with the ego and we think we are the ego, and the rest of it flows immediately. The ego is identified with the mind, and the ego is identified with the body, and then we think we are the body and mind. This is how the mechanism works. And the whole purpose of Vedanta is to slice this connection between you and the ego. The ego can continue working. The mind will continue working. Memories, everything, body and mind will be perfect, continue working. And yet you will know that I use the body and mind. I am shining in the body and mind, but I am not the body and mind. So the whole strategy of Vedanta is to slice the connection, cut the connection, the apparent connection between you, the witness self, and the ego. Look again at the first line of Shankaracharya's beautiful hymn. I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I am not the memory, I am not the ego. Mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham. I am not the ego. Do you see how apparently contradictory it is? When you say I am not the ego, you know what you're saying? You're saying I am not I. The ego is the I. It says I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I am not the memory, I am not the ego. I am not I. How could that be true? It's true because mind, memory, intellect, ego, they are all objects, they are all experienced. If they are experienced, the simple direct fact, I experience them. Hence, I cannot be those things. They are things. Just like this thing, just like this thing. So now, how do I slice the connection between myself and the ego? Verse 8. The connection between the ego and three things. We have ego connected to three things. One is consciousness, pure consciousness itself, the real you. The other one is the reflected consciousness in the mind. The ego always shines in the reflected consciousness. When you think right now, I, don't you feel I am aware? All the time you feel. The moment you think I, it's an aware I. It's a conscious I. It's an I shining in awareness. So the second thing with which the ego is connected is this reflected consciousness. And the third thing which with this the consciousness is connected, the ego is connected, is the body. Immediately when you say I, automatically it comes, I am this. So the ego, mentally draw a picture, ego, I, is connected with three things: reflected consciousness, body, pure consciousness. And how are these connections formed and how are they cut? What is our ultimate goal? To cut the connection between the I and the pure consciousness. So I is connected to reflected consciousness, to the body, and to pure consciousness. Let's explore these connections. What does it say? Sahajam karmajam bhranti janyam trividam. Trividam means three kinds of connections. Kramat means in sequence. The connection between the I, ego, and reflected consciousness is natural, sahajam. It's like a mirror and your reflected face. Imagine your face, this face is the original consciousness. The mirror is the ego. When you put the mirror in front of the face, what happens in the mirror? There is a reflected face, right? If you have a mirror in front of your face, there is a reflected face. And this reflected face and the mirror, what kind of relation do they have? This reflected face and the mirror, what kind of relation do they have? They have a natural relation. Moment there is a mirror, there will be a reflection, right? Moment there is a mirror, there will naturally be a reflection. Your face will be reflected in the mirror. This mirror example is very good. Why? Because the ego functions as a mirror, the mind itself functions as a mirror, and consciousness is reflected in the mirror. You see, the interesting thing is, when you hold a mirror in front of yourself, what you see is the mirror and what you see is your reflected face. The original face is not seen. Correct? Your original face is not seen directly. What you see is a reflection. The mind functions in that way. The ego functions in that way. It reflects consciousness. So the awareness that we feel right now is like the reflected face. It's a reflected consciousness. We experience a reflected consciousness. We do not see ourselves as the original consciousness. That's what's happening. So the first relationship is between the ego, which functions as a mirror, and the reflected consciousness, which is natural to the mirror. Moment there is a mirror, there's reflected consciousness. The second connection, what's the connection between the ego and the body? I am this body, this feeling. What's the connection? Karmajam, born of karma. Because of our past karma, we have this body. Each body is produced by our past karma. We had many bodies earlier, we lived many lives earlier. We are in this life now because of our past karma. As long as that portion of our past karma keeps on giving results, this body will continue. As long as this body continues, the ego will be connected to this body. You can't do anything about it. As long as the body continues, this ego will be connected to the body. And the idea is when the body dies, the subtle body, it transmigrates to other bodies, and then the ego will say, I am this body. This body is forgotten. It's burnt or cremated or buried or whatever. And then you say a new body, a baby is born, and you say, I am this. So the ego is always connected to the body by karma, by our past karma. We have two relations already. The ego is connected to consciousness naturally, one. Ego is connected to this body by past karma. These are not questions we are interested in. The real question we are interested in is, how is the ego connected to that witness self, the pure consciousness? And it comes here, the next one. That's an absolutely stunning point it makes. Bhranti janyam. There is no connection at all between you and the ego. It's incredible what it says. We think we are the ego. And here Vedanta says it has nothing to do with you. No more than the leaf shaking in the wind is you. It's something, it's an object. The ego is an object. Bhranti means error. The only connection between you and the ego is error. It's a confusion. It's a misunderstanding. It's error. There was this person who went to a Swami who lived in a cave. Give me freedom, this disciple said. And the Swami said, okay, you stay here. And they put him immediately on a schedule of duties. You clean the cave and you bring food from the village and you conduct the worship. So you have to become a disciple. Then you get the knowledge which gives you freedom. After a month of this, the disciple became irritated. He said, when are you going to give me freedom? If you don't give me freedom, I'm going to go to a different guru. Then the Swami thought, oh, I'm going to lose this disciple. So let me give him freedom. Come tomorrow early in the morning, take a bath, fast, come with a pure mind, come in the morning, I'll give you freedom. So this disciple is excited at last. And he comes in the morning and he sees the guru in the early light of the morning. He has come out of the cave and there's a big old tree in front of the cave. And the Swami, the guru, is holding that cave and saying, give me freedom, free me, free me, free me. And the disciple said, Swami, just let go. Just let go. And the Swami turned to the disciple and said, precisely. Just let go. What's the tree which we are holding on to? It's this body-mind. Most precisely, the precise point at which we are holding on is the ego. The ego will continue to exist, but what we are going to say is, I am not the ego. The ego is an instrument. The memory is an instrument. The intellect is an instrument. The mind is an instrument. The body is an instrument. It's not me. Bhranti janyam. And now we come to verse number 9. How do you cut this? How do you cut these relationships? Remember the three relationships. You, the ego, you right now. This ego is connected to body by karma. It's connected to the reflected consciousness, naturally, like a mirror and reflection. And it's connected to pure consciousness by no connection at all, by foolishness. So how do you disconnect the pure consciousness from the ego? So how do you cut these three relationships? Verse number 9. Sambandhino sator nasti nivritti sahajasya tu karmakshayat prabodhacha nivartete kramadubhe. How do you cut these three relationships? You have to remember what the three relationships are, of course, and then you proceed to cut them. How do you cut them? As long as the two terms in a natural relationship, as long as the mirror is there, there will be a reflected face. True? As long as you have a mirror, your face will be reflected in it. As long as the ego is there, consciousness will be reflected in it. You can't cut it. It will be there. So imagine in deep sleep, for example, the ego does not function and you don't feel the reflected consciousness also. You don't feel aware. You don't feel, I am in deep sleep. No, nobody feels that. If you feel that, you are not in deep sleep. So as long as the ego is functioning, consciousness will be reflected there. So the first relationship cannot be cut. It's natural. The second relationship, ego and the body. Do you remember? I am this body. How is it cut? It's cut only by the exhaustion of karma. When the karma of this body goes, this body will age and die, and the ego will proceed to another body. So the relationship between the body and the ego is cut only when karma is exhausted. And you get, but karma is exhausted means only part of it. It will generate a new body. And then you have the ego will be related to the new body. But the main point is the third relationship. How is this cut? And the answer is prabodhat, which means by awakening, by knowledge, by illumination, by enlightenment. Just by the knowledge that I am not the mirror, I am not the reflected face. How do you cut the relationship between your real face and the reflected face? This is a good question. How do you cut the relationship between your real face and the reflected face? Tell me. There's no relationship, yes. By knowledge, yes. You just know that it's not me. It looks like me. It looks just like me, but it's not me. It's a reflection. It's a part of the mirror. And it's not me. Just by that knowledge, you have cut the relationship between your real face and the reflected face, which looks exactly like a real face. In the same way, we cut the relationship between the ego and the reflected consciousness shining in it and ourselves, the witness consciousness, by knowledge. See, that which is generated by error can only be removed by knowledge. That which is generated by error. The classic example, a person is walking and sees a snake and thinks it's a snake and gets scared and comes close to it and sees it's a piece of rope. It's a classic example. Now, how do you correct that thing? How do you drive away that snake? The false snake, not a real snake. How do you drive away the false snake? Do you chase it with a stick? No. All you need is knowledge that it's a rope. Then the false snake is gone. Here, all you need is knowledge that it's not me. Clearly, I am the witness. Why is it not me? Back to the first verse. Because it's an object. The ego is an object. The reflected consciousness shining in an ego is an object. It's not me. Practice seeing the ego as an object. Watch how it behaves. The moment you make the ego an object separate from you, automatically mind will be separate from you. Emotions and desires and miseries and impulses, all of them will be separate from you. You'll find the mind is much easier to control then. The mind is difficult to control because we think we are the mind. Unhappy? I am unhappy. Mind wants a cookie? I want a cookie. Right? Everything that the mind does not want, likes, dislikes, all of those become my likes and dislikes. All of those become my agenda because I have embraced the mind and think it's me. The moment you clearly see it's not me, then you realize all those things are in the mind, but I am untouched. I have 2 minutes. I'll finish saying this with a little story. It's a story of the great sage Brihaspati and his son Kacha. Now this son went to study, and he studied the Vedas and all sorts of things which were taught in ancient India, and he came back to his father very proud, thinking that I am more learned than the old man. His father saw that and he said, well, son, you have studied all of this, you have attended all the retreats and you know all of this, you have got all these notes and stuff, and have you found peace? And Kacha had to admit, no, not really, I haven't found peace. Then the father said, and asked his father, now how do I get peace? The father says, tyaga, by renunciation, by giving up. So he says, okay, I give up everything, I give up my wealth and all of that. And he goes all over India to the different holy places and comes back. And his father says, have you found peace? He says, no. Then only by renunciation, by giving up, you find peace. And Kacha thinks, what else can I give up? Okay, I give up every possession, including my little loincloth which I was wearing. So nude, he wanders all over India. And there are monks even today who actually wander nude in India. And so I give up everything, including clothes, including I don't want food also. If people feed me, that's all right. Otherwise, I'm not even going to beg for food. And he wanders all over India to the holy places and comes back. And his father says, have you found peace? Not really. How do I find peace? By giving up. The same thing. What else can I give up? And he thinks, okay, this body, I got it. This body, I have to give up the body. So he lights a fire and he's going to jump in the fire. And his father says, wait a minute, son. If you do that, this is no way of giving up the body. Why? Because if you do that, the mind with its desires will continue on to the next birth, and you will have, because of your past karma, you will get a new body, and then another body, and body after that. So this is no way of, suicide is no way of giving up the body, because it'll get replaced soon as you have given it up, and you'll end up in a worse position than you are in. So that's, by the way, why suicide is highly not recommended in any religion. Then Kachar thinks, then how do I give up if I'm not going to destroy the body? He says, then his father tells him the secret. The real giving up is giving up of the ego, of giving up of the mind. Chitta, the mind has to be given up. How do I give up the mind? How do I give up the ego? By knowing that it's not me. It is not I. Realize that the ego and the mind are objects. Just as you treat your clothes and your iPhone and all of that, the mind is a very sophisticated iPhone. That's all that it is. Yeah. And it's got this little ego in it, which we identify. How terrible it would be if we already are pretty much identified with the iPhone, but if you thought you were the iPhone, it would be terrible. So we think we are this mind. Give up this identification with the mind, and there you have it. Then you will find peace. You get peace immediately. The nature of the pure self, of pure consciousness, is peace. You remember the story where the man went to the Swami asking for peace, and the Swami said, the peace of the mind is also no peace. Restlessness of the mind, you are the witness. Peace of the mind, you are the witness. So that is giving up of the mind, knowing that I am not the mind, I am not the ego. That's all for now, and we will meet again in the evening.
Now we will listen to Mooji. And Mooji is maybe the most popular teacher of Advaita today. We took satsang with him many times while we were in India. His talk is My Being, My Ego, and I.
I want to show you something, and we are this close to the seeing of it. It is always here, that which I'm pointing to. But the perceiving, the clarity of recognition is this. You're right here with it. Stay with it. You imagine that there are, in the way that you speak, there are like three factors. There's the pure being, there's the ego being, and there's you. And you are the one who is saying, yes, but I see the pure being is here, it's so pure and lovely, and there's the ego is not so pure, not so lovely, okay? And the ego is what seems to arise in day-to-day life, it's got their playing and stuff like this. But there's also this pure space of being, which is also there. And how can I, whoever, establish your identity, please, balance the two? Determine who the I is. What is the I? Is it true? Is this I true? I see my being. That being is there. You know, it's kind of pure. It's just so. It's so innocent in a way. It just is. And there is this active kind of one who is pursuing and struggling. And how can we, because it seems like the one who's in there doing life Doing life is actually a good term. Doing life, okay. That one will not just lie down with this one, you know. So it has to have its space. But and the beingness is here. But how can we find a balance? So I'm finding now, asking, high is what? When you say, how can I get to that place of this I and discern? When you say I, what is I indicating? What is I? What is the substance of that I? Who is this I who is trying to find a balance? This is at the very root of all our erroneous perception. Please give it the attention that it needs to be given. Because everyone is saying this. There is my being, and there is my ego. My implies ownership. My car, my husband, my wife, my job, my beliefs, my past, my future, my thoughts, you see, my meditation, my life, my ego. Okay? And now my being. And so my being is good, my ego not so good. How can I put it? So I is what? It's fundamental to all language. Can language exist without I? Who's I? Get to it, get to it, get to the point, get to it.
One without qualities. So none of that can be true because they've all got qualities and beings with qualities.
No, but swallow it. Swallow yourself with the words. Okay? When you say there's one without qualities, who is speaking even, you see? Who's offering this statement?
It's to separate from...
Listen, all these words you are saying, they're up there fluffing about. Get inside the sleeping bag and close yourself in with this contemplation for me. And speak from this place of the examination, internally. Speak internally about it. Speak as consciousness, don't speak as mind. Because you're all doing it, speak like mind, and it's trash. It's trash. It sounds very nice, but it's trash. Show me when you look. See and understand. Something is saying, I would like to strike a balance between my being and my ego. Is this a true? Is there an I apart from being that wishes to have the being and the ego sorted out? Okay guys, get on together, okay? Now I am happy with things. Who is this I? What is observing this? You say, I itself is an idea. Listen, all of your existence has been planned to be lived as I. Okay? I'm not telling you get rid of I. Who's going to get rid of I? Another I. Okay? So this is not a challenge that's being given to you. Actually. There is a beautiful discovery taking place. Don't give up. Take a look. And so now, something says, when searched for, it arises that it cannot be found. I can't find it. Okay? So this is great. This is great. Now tell me something. What is making this discovery? I can't find the I, actually. Something is saying, I did this, I think, I want, Now, okay, where is it? Could you look for it? Now it's been looked for and it's not found, except as an idea, as a feeling. Something called I, okay, and it is recognized. But it's not tangible. It's not really an entity. Or is it? Or is it? Or is it? Okay? Now, some words are coming that have a sense in them. It is saying it cannot be found. And now the second question, what is discovering this? That the I that we speak about, personality, the one who's looking, the one who has aspirations, the one who has these desires and feels so let down and what, this one cannot be found phenomenally. What is discovering that this one does not exist apart from as a thought?
It's strange because if everything is known, how can something be discovered?
if everything is known, why don't you answer my question?
Sorry, that was just...
Yeah, the question I'm asking is important. Something makes this discovery. It's not the answers I want to answer. Ah, yes, miss, or yes, sir. It's not the answer that needs to be right. It's the recognition. What is happening to you if you allowed yourself to go inside with this question, and just to look? We don't have far to go.
And now, Nome. Nome was my teacher for many years. Meditate along with him. He wants you to experience what he's talking about. Experience it, not just think about it. And he will ask, by what light?
By what light do you know that you exist? What knows? Certainly, the knowledge of your existence does not depend upon a body. What knows? The senses do not know it. It knows the senses, but the senses do not know it. What knows? How do you know that you exist? It is not due to thought. It knows thought, but remains unknown by thought. What knows? How do you know that you exist? You must exist in order to know it. Indeed, the knowledge and the existence are inextricable. They are identical. When you are happy, what knows the happiness? It knows itself. The perfect fullness of existence is self-knowing. If you yearn to realize the truth, what so yearns? The reality is self-known. Evidently, the unreal cannot know the real, for the unreal does not exist. The real comprehends itself, not by sensation, not by conception, not by anything objective whatsoever. The only veiling of the innate perfection is misidentification, which alone constitutes ignorance. Such misidentification is not a second reality, not a second self. It is just misidentification, delusion, the self of imagination. Inquire within, who am I? What is the self that actually exists? What is the nature of the inquirer? In existence, there is no multiplicity. In true knowledge, there is no differentiation. The self is existence alone. True knowledge is consciousness alone. If you suppose that you are apart from that, who is it that so supposes? Have a keen interest in self-knowledge. For in this lies peace, happiness, and freedom from all of the imagined bondage. Listen, reflect, meditate, remain absorbed. Thus you will know the self, and what you know is what you are. What you appear to have you may lose, but what you are is forever. Just as existence is unborn and imperishable, so is this knowledge. Without beginning and without end. From the viewpoint of the assumed individuality or ego, it may appear enigmatic or perplexing as to how this can be. From that perspective, one thinks of knowledge as something possessed or something that occurs. But self-knowledge in truth is identical to the self that is known. It neither comes nor goes. It is indivisible and undifferentiated. Such is timeless truth. That timeless truth, that supreme Brahman, is what indeed you are. And what you are always. What you are not, you are never. So then, what exists? The self exists, but it cannot be known objectively, as if you were one thing and the self were another. After all, what is being indicated here is yourself. What knows? By what light do you know that you exist?
And now we will take a few minutes and meditate. Just notice that you exist. You exist and you know that you exist. You don't have to think about it. You don't find it out from your senses. You know it, but it's deeper than thought or your senses. You exist and you know that you exist. Then inquire, from where does the sense of I arise? Is it from my body? Does my body say I? I know the body. That means I'm not the body. How about my senses? Does the I come from sensing? When my senses are quiet, I still feel that I exist. The I does not depend on the senses. How about the life force that courses through the body, the beating heart, the breath flowing in and out? Is that where the I comes from? You know these. You know your breath. Does your breath know you? How about your mind? You have ever so many thoughts. Is any of these thoughts you? You know these thoughts. The thoughts are objective to you. That means that you observe the thoughts and you are not the thoughts. You know the thoughts. How about the intellect that makes a world out of all these thoughts? Are you this intellect? One thing made by this intellect is this sense of ego I, the seeming I that exists, that's separate, from everything else. Again, you know this ego I. There are moments where the ego I isn't even there, but you still exist in those moments. So you cannot be that ego I. You are always, and the ego I comes and goes. It goes every night in deep sleep. You still exist. And now keep going deeper. If I'm not the body, if I'm not the senses, if I'm not the life forces, if I'm not the thought, if I'm not the intellect, then just who am I? What is the nature of my existence? All right. Let's close with a short chant. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thanks for watching today. If this satsang was of interest to you, I have more resources, a free book site, a YouTube site, and my blog. The URLs will be on the screen next. There will be more of these satsangs in coming weeks as we continue with this series based on the Ramana book, Who Am I? Thank you for letting me share this teaching with you.